Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to talk you through all of the books that I read in September and October this year. So after many years of not really reading, I started reading again in August and I'm a little bit obsessed, to be honest with you, as you can probably see from the books that are now behind me. A lot of these books are from charity shops, but I've also started buying the odd new book as well. So the book that started off this whole thing that created this obsession, I'm sure you've probably heard of this book, was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Basically, I've been watching a few booktubers and I had also started looking on Instagram and TikTok, and this book came up a lot, and so I decided to read it. Now, this book is mentioned a lot as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which was kind of off-putting for me because Beauty and the Beast is one of my favourite films. I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy this or not. I did listen to this on audio and I really struggled with this book. I had it on 2x speed at one point because I was just trying to get through it. I don't like to DNF books, especially it was my first book I was reading. I have yet to DNF a book, like fully DNF a book and not even skim read it. I have not DNF'd a book yet. This book, I was so close. I was so close. But I'd say the last 30% of this book really grabbed my attention. So the first 70% I was so bored, and the last 30% it grabbed my attention. Things started happening, the information started coming out, and I was like, wait, what? Hang on a second. Where is this going? I would say you need to stick with this book, because then the next book is A Court of Wings of Ruin.
Hello, I'm just editing this video and I'm just popping in because I have held up the wrong book and I have said the wrong book title. The second book in the series is A Court of Mist and Fury, and that is the book I am about to discuss.
And this is the best of the series, in my opinion. I believe a lot of other people also agree with that statement. The way these books are written is so good. You just need to trust me. If you are struggling with book one, you're gonna struggle with book one. It's not a great book. However, I would like to reread book one. I feel like I will enjoy book one a lot more after having read book two and also book three of this series. But yes, book two is my favourite. It's amazing. I love the characters in this book. The family in this book is just, it's beautiful. The relationships in the book, the way they interact with each other, I can't. I know I'm really bad at describing this book. I don't want to give it too much information away, this is the thing. So let me tell you a bit about the first book. The first book, in its simplicity, is we have a main character who is human and she kills a wolf, which turns out to be Fae, and then another Fae turns up at her door and basically says the punishment for killing one of them is death. However, he is happy to let her come with him and live with him instead of dying. And she agrees. So yeah, basically you have the girl that ends up living in the house with the Beast. I would say that's as far as it goes in terms of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't think these books are a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I feel like this book has similar, there's little parts that you can pull that is like Beauty and the Beast, but overall quite different in my opinion. So overall I really enjoyed the series. I think I rated these 3 stars, 5 stars and 4 stars, because you just can't beat the middle one, I'm sorry. But yeah, it was still good, really enjoyed it. Just, this is the one. At the minimum you have to read the first 2, but do try and read all of them. But yeah, if you are struggling with this, please persevere. It's so good, it's so good. I also listened to the novella that follows that, which is A Court of Frost and Starlight, and I also listened to A Court of Silver Flames, which is the 5th book in the series. And that one follows one of the main character's sisters, but you kind of get to have an insight into the rest of the characters as well. You're still in that world, you still get to see the other characters and their progression, including the main character from your first 3 books. I didn't mind the change of perspective. I know a lot of people don't like the change of perspective and they don't particularly like that character, but she does have an arc and I enjoyed it. I will say, I have like some really weird favourite characters from these books. So in the first 3 books, there is a character called the Surreal, and I really liked that character. They're not in it a lot, but I cried. This character made me cry, okay? This character made me cry. That's all I'm going to say. So if you do read them, look out for the Surreal. And then in A Court of Silver Flames, I really liked the house. Is that weird? The house is like my favourite character in A Court of Silver Flames. That might sound really odd, but if you read the books, you'll understand. The house is my favourite character. Moving on, I read In a Dark, Dark Blood by Ruth Ware. This is a thriller. I believe this is Ruth Ware's debut thriller. I just picked this up in a charity shop. I thought it sounded interesting. So basically, there is a main character who receives an email from an old friend. She hasn't seen them or spoken to them for 10 years, and she receives an email inviting her to their hen party because they're getting married. So she ends up going to this hen party because someone else that she's friends with is also going. They kind of all used to go to school together. So she goes to this hen party, and it's in this glass house in the middle of the woods. And most of the book is just you meeting all the characters and them interacting with each other. And some of the characters are quite quirky. One of the characters is like a little bit odd and like intense, and then something happens. The whole story is kind of like told from, it's from her perspective, but you're getting, it's like alternating chapters. So one chapter will be from like the lead up to the event happening, and the following chapter starts from after the event. So you're getting 2 storylines, one that's before the event and one that's after the event. But you don't know what the event is. You don't know what happens in the middle, because she has some memory loss problems after the event. So you know something has happened, you don't know what has happened, and you're getting 2 different storylines from before and after. And then towards the end, it all marries up and you get to find out what actually happened. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did. It was enough to keep me interested. I liked the double storyline thing that they had going on, and I have since bought more Ruth Ware, and I'm excited to read those, just because I did enjoy this book. So yeah, as far as thrillers go, it was a nice easy read that I enjoyed. The next book I read was The Highest Form of Killing by Malcolm Rose. This is a point book. It's a thriller. I picked this up because I liked point horror books as a teenager, and I've also started collecting some of the point horror books just for nostalgia and to reread them. And yeah, I just saw this and I thought, oh, maybe that would be good. But it wasn't. I really did not enjoy this book. I gave this book 1 star. If 0 stars was an option, I would have given it 0 stars. I just really didn't enjoy it. So it's basically a dangerous disease gets out from this disease centre. So it's like man-made disease. And a couple of students find out. I can't remember much about this. It was so bad. It was so boring. And the story didn't really go anywhere. It's less than 300 pages. It should have been an easy read. It was not an easy read. Basically, nothing happens. If you don't want spoilers, skip this section, because I'm going to spoil the book. So basically, nothing happens for like the entire book. And then right at the end, one of the students arranges to meet with someone from like this disease centre. They both end up in a room together, and he's supposed to hand over the vial of this disease. And instead of handing it over, he throws it on the floor, and they won't let them out because, you know, it kills very quickly as well. So basically they both die, and then that's the end of the book. That's it. I skim read the last few chapters of the book. I got very far into it and skim read the last few chapters where like they just pointlessly die and it doesn't go anywhere, and I just felt like the whole book was pointless, and I was really annoyed that I'd wasted my time on it, and this was probably a book that I should have DNF'd. That's hindsight. So this cost me £1 from a charity shop, and it is going back to the charity shop because I really didn't like it. Next, me and my partner decided to listen to a very popular series that I've heard plenty of people say is amazing. So we listened to the first book, which is Red Rising. I didn't enjoy it. I don't understand, like, some people have said this is their favourite series. I'm like, why? So basically it follows this character who is on Mars. and he's working in mines, and they're mining something that I can't remember the name of, but it's a resource that they apparently need in order to build up other planets and make them safe for humans to live on. So he lives in this mining community, and they are underground on Mars, and they believe that they are mining all this stuff so that they can build up the surface of Mars so that the humans can eventually live there. If you don't want early book spoilers, then just skip this bit here, because I'm about to tell you some stuff. But very early on in the book, his wife, she says some things that some higher up people don't like, and she gets sentenced to death. So his wife dies, and after she is hung, he takes her body down and he goes and buries the body, which is also not allowed, because they leave the body up to kind of teach people, like, this is what will happen to you if you do what we don't like. So he takes the body down, buries it, and then he is sentenced to death for doing that. But he doesn't die. They think he's dead, but he's not dead. It'll be explained in the book if you want to read it, listen to it, whatever. But he is basically saved by this rebel group who take him up to the surface, and when he goes up to the surface, he sees that the planet's already populated. They've got buildings, they've got infrastructure, they have everything. It's already there. So basically everything they've been doing below, they didn't need to be doing, because it's already done. They've already got civilization. They've got different classes of people. It's all already there. And basically they're just lying to these people, making them mind so that they can do other planets. But they thought they were just trying to sort out their own planet so that they could live a happy life, which is not the case. Anyway, he ends up getting genetically modified to become one of these higher class people. It's a bit sci-fi. And he tries to integrate himself into this class of people called Golds. He's previously a Red, which is why it's called Red Rising. So he's trying to integrate into this class of Golds, and he enters some sort of weird competition thing that they have to go through to progress in stature. I'm not sure. Anyway, he goes through like this series of events, and basically this kind of Hunger Games style thing happens. And I just found that the majority of the book is like this Hunger Games style thing. And basically, I feel like they needed to give us more backstory on him and his wife before she died. That would have been good. The whole Hunger Games thing could have been cut right down to like a few chapters, and then, like, you know, carry on the rest of the series. Like, it was really boring. I'm sorry, it just, like, it wasn't good. And also there was a lot of raping, which seemed to be like, yeah, fine, cool, normal. There didn't seem to be any consequences for all the raping that was happening throughout the book. It was That's Red Rising, that's book 1 of the series. That's how I feel about it. And we did start listening to book 2 because I'd heard that things turn around somehow in book 2. I feel like we listened to more than 30% of book 2 and we gave up on it. It was kind of more of the same, but in space this time, rather than on the planet. So now they're in space and it's kind of like more of the same. I wasn't enjoying it. So, if you like this series, if it does get better after 30% odd in book 2, if somehow anything could happen that could change my mind about this series, tell me in the comments. Don't tell me what happens, but if I need to pursue this and carry on for it to become good, let me know, and I will try and carry on. But at this point, like, if it's more of the same, like, no, I'm just not interested. It's not for me. Next up, I read The Cruel Prince. I read this on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not sure if it's still on Kindle Unlimited, but it was when I read it. That's the first in, I believe it's the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. It's a YA fantasy. It has fae and humans that end up living in the fae realm. It follows 3 siblings. One of them, their mother was human and their father was fae, so they are fae. And the other 2 children, she left him, and the other 2 children have a different dad who's human, so they're human. But they end up living in the fae world. They end up taken back by their dad, and it basically follows them. And one of the siblings is like the main character that you follow, and she's getting bullied at school by one of the princes, potential heir to the fae crown. Yeah, it just kind of follows her and the relationship with the other fae children and this prince in particular. And again, this is a book where like not much really happens until like the last 30% of the book. I feel like there's a pattern like with trilogies, like first 70% of the first book is all like building up your characters, and the last 30% is where stuff actually starts to happen. So stuff goes down at the end of the first book, and kind of made me want to try reading the second book. The only thing with this series is I did find it like quite childlike. I don't know if that was a deliberate writing style because the characters are young, or if that was unintentional, but yeah, it did come across as like quite young. But yeah, it got a bit interesting towards the end, so I wouldn't say this is a romance at this point in time. I thought it was a fantasy romance. I definitely fancy it. I'm not sure if it's a romance at this point. But yeah, I will probably continue with the series at some point, just not right now. I did buy book 2 and 3 for 99p on Kindle, because it weren't in Kindle Unlimited, but they had an offer on. So I do have book 2 and 3 on the Kindle. I'll probably read that at some point. The next book I read was Pestilence by Laura Falasa. This is the first in the 4 Horsemen series. It's a paranormal romance. So the first one is Pestilence. He comes to Earth and he basically rides around the world spreading plague and disease and basically killing everyone. And he comes into contact with our other main character. I've forgotten her name. But yeah, she tries to kill him, and then he takes her prisoner, and so she is forced to go with him on his journey around the world, killing everyone. And so yeah, it's a bit post-apocalyptic, and eventually romance blossoms between them. And yeah, she's like trying to persuade him that what he's doing is wrong, and that, you know, he can stop, but he's not really having any of it. There is a part in the book, which is my favourite part. They end up at a house with an elderly couple, and I just fell in love with this elderly couple. Like, the whole part in this house with this elderly couple, if you've read it, you'll know which bit I'm on about. That was my favourite part. It made me emotional. I like the side characters. I like the little hidden messages of like hope, and I don't know. I just, yeah. I like the little side stories that are in books. So yeah, if you've read that, did you like that bit? I really liked that bit. So if you've watched my December TBR video, you'll know I am continuing the series. I want to read War in December. So hopefully that one's good as well. Next I read Regretting You by Colleen Hoover, which is a romance book. We kind of have 2 main characters in this story, and there's kind of like an ongoing storyline with like the mother, and then there's like an ongoing storyline with like her daughter. So basically the first chapter of the book is from the mother's perspective. I think it alternates between like the mother's perspective and the daughter's perspective. I enjoyed it. It was really good. There's like a couple of twists that happen in there. The ending for me was the best bit. Like, the ending was so sweet. It was so cute. Just gave me all the feels and all of the butterflies. And yeah, I read it in about 3 sittings. It was really enjoyable, really easy to read, and I definitely recommend it. Next I read The Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields. I enjoyed the book, but I kind of feel like this book needed to be longer. I feel like the characters needed to be fleshed out a lot more. I feel like it needed to be over a longer period of time. I liked the premise, I liked the characters, I liked the storyline. I just kind of feel like it needed to be longer. Potentially a duology or a trilogy, maybe a duology. I just would have liked it to have been fleshed out a bit more, because it all felt very quick. Like, everything that happened seemed to be like bam bam bam, like, whoa, what's happening here? It moved very quickly, I didn't feel like there was enough time to sit with what was happening, but overall I enjoyed it. It was a fantasy romance and it was enjoyable. It was good. The next book I read, I gave it 5 stars. I keep thinking about this book. I can't stop thinking about this book. I don't have it with me right now because I have lent it to someone. I did read it in hardcover, picked it up in a charity shop. I think it was like 50p or £1, and that is The Push by Ashley Audrain, which is her debut novel. This is one of those books where I picked it up and I didn't think I was gonna like it. All I knew about it was that it was about motherhood and something happens during the course of the book. I think it was called a domestic drama. I think it's a bit more of a thriller, personally. It definitely had me on tenterhooks, and the end of that book, I can't. I love books. I almost chucked this book across the room. I didn't throw the book. I was very well behaved. I was raging at the end because I didn't want it to end where it ended. It ended and I was like, is that it? What? Like, I need to know what happened. Things happen throughout the book, and when you get to the end, there's all this doubt all the way through the book. The mother thinks things are happening, but she doubts herself a lot. So you're kind of like, you're from her perspective, and it's like, is that stuff actually happening? Is she making it out to be more than it is? Or is it happening? And she goes through back and forth, and there's all this doubt put in your head, and several times your perception through the book might change, like, oh no, she's just being silly. And then the next minute you're like, no, she's right, this is happening, she knows. And then, yeah, the end of the book is kind of like left on her. Did it happen the way we think it happened? Did that happen? The chapters, again, there's different perspectives. It kind of covers new mother. She doesn't have children to start with. There's a bit where she doesn't have children, but eventually the new mother with her children, and then it also covers her mother and her mother's childhood, and then her grandmother. So it's kind of like her grandmother with her mother, and then her mother with her, and then her with her children. And there's different chapters from different perspectives, like each of those generations. It was really interesting. It was really well written, and it gets creepy about probably maybe halfway through. The first kind of half is like set up and build up and like history of like this family basically. But yeah, I really enjoyed it and I can't stop thinking about it. That was a 5-star read for me. Has anyone else read that book? What did you think about it? I'd love to know. So the last 2 books I read were Caraval and Legendary. These are book 1 and book 2 in the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. So they are young adult fantasy, set in a fantasy world, and there's magic, and it basically follows 2 sisters who, during their childhood, they write to Master Legend, who runs these events called Caraval, and he goes to a different city every time, and he's already been to their city like 30 years beforehand, so he won't come back to that city. So they write to him a lot, asking him to revisit that city so that they can attend Caraval. They eventually get a reply from Master Legend, but he's not willing to come back to the city, but he does invite them to travel to his own island to take part in Caraval. So these 2 sisters go over and they participate in Caraval. They are told at the beginning, everything is not as it seems, don't get too swept up by the magic, you can't go in thinking things are real, because they're not, it's all fake, it's all magic. So yeah, it just follows them as they participate, and there's twists and turns. It's good, it's enjoyable, it's fun. By the end of the book I was really into it. There are 3 books in this series and I really enjoyed book 1 and book 2, but I will talk about the 3rd one in my November wrap-up video whenever I film and upload that. If you like YA fantasy, definitely recommend it. It was really fun and really enjoyable read. If you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in this video, I would love to talk to you about them. Just hit me up in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.